All right, I just wanted to give a quick intro to this. I sit down with my friend Oscar, and I'm just kind of going through my head on this redesign that I've been trying to work on over this last year, doing a lot of pieces here and there. And this is just a conversation that I'm having with another creative about the 3B brand, and he's helping me refine and kind of focus my intentions, and I'm looking for inspiration. So this is just our conversation. It goes every which way, but I hope that there's something that you can take away from this. I think it's important as creatives to kind of pull back the covers and to have people see the process that went into a redesign. But here's our conversation, and I hope that you can get something out of it.
I was made for this. Yeah, yeah. I was made for this. I was made for this.
So yeah, so part of the reason I don't know, it's just been a hard week is I just feel like, I've been doing this for 6 years, and while I love the act and the process and the stuff that I do, but what's getting increasingly more frustrating is, like, as I start to try and focus on figuring out how to create a business out of it, a way that I can sustain myself so that I don't have to do a day job to be able to do this.
Mhm.
Like, it's because I ultimately that is what I wanted to do. Like, I started it as a laboratory to understand how to build a product and build a business. And I just feel like, at the beginning of the year, I started like realizing that it's really about like networking and marketing are the two areas. Like, I've done a lot in like honing my craft, understanding the stuff that I do, but I really need to break through those barriers that I purposely did not do those because I was like, oh, I'm just gonna hone my craft, and that's been great, and I do and love like so much of what I do about it. But I don't know, this week has just been really hard. Um, I've actually been having conversations. I chatted with um, a print company because right now I just do the on-demand printing, and so
Yeah.
I started looking at, what would it be if I could do like offset printing and like trying to get the cost down so that I could lower the price of the magazine, um, so I can make it more competitive, because I think $30 I always thought was too expensive. So from a business model, how do I how do I one, increase the quality, because the offset printing is just so nice. And I always, like, in my mind that this was always just a stopgap. Like,
Mhm.
the way that I'm doing it was always just in between, but I never like researched what it would take to get there. So
Yeah.
I had those conversations, and I also talked to them because I'm doing that children's book. And so just getting informed. I've been doing research on like doing a Kickstarter, to be able to get new people engaged and involved in the brand and stuff like that. But then in doing that, um, I think looking back at it, it has been really difficult this week to think about investing, thousands of dollars to be able to do this when I've only sold 20 magazines. And so part of me is like, it's just stupid, you know. And so it's like that part where it's like I love the things that I'm doing, and like I really enjoy it, but at the same time, uh yeah, it is frustrating. Like, I haven't really grown at all, like in in the sense of awareness of what I'm doing. So, but I actually reached out last night to the Circles conference
Yeah.
and was just basically like, because that was, to me, that was one of the things. It was 6 years ago. It was 2015,
Wow.
that I was at that conference the first day. I was so inspired. I couldn't sleep got up in the middle of the night and wrote my first article and was like, I'm doing this. And I committed at that point. I was like, I'm just going to spend an hour a day, every day, for as long as it takes to just do a magazine. And I just found that I loved every part of it. It was this combination of design and photography and product design.
Yeah.
And like figuring out the business, and then figuring out how can I do it that also, because I was, reading like Tom Shoe's story, and so how can I do like social good with the product, and so it just hit so many different notes for me. And so I reached out to them and was like, hey, I'd love to come and explain how I want to speak on how to make dreams a reality, and specifically how the Circles Conference was a catalyst for me to find success. So I would love to speak. I guess that's the other thing, like I'm starting to do, is I'm talking to another friend who's in marketing, and she did like this marketing seminar, and she's like, basically like one of the best ways to grow is to speak at conferences. And so like I was like, yeah, that's something that I've always wanted to do. So I think it's a combination. What's that?
I think you'd be really good at that too. I've seen you present.
Yeah, I mean, there's been people at work, right, that have said, several people that have said, like, I go to your meetings, like, I don't care what you're talking about. I go because you're a great speaker, and I love, any subject you're going to present on.
Story, Mark. Tell me a story.
So I don't know. I feel like I feel like it is one of my strengths. I would love to get in there. So I think it's part of like reaching out and trying to do new things, and also like recognizing, I don't know. It's just like, it was hard to, like, on one hand, I think there's like two sides of my brain. One hand, I'm like, I genuinely don't do the things to make the money.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do want it to be a job. I don't want it to just be a hobby.
Right.
And there's a frustration with, how do I help, like, and it doesn't even necessarily have to be like I sell more magazines, but I'm trying to figure out how can and this is what I think a lot of people are asking, like, how can I have do creative work and sustain myself? Like, how can I make a living doing my art? And that doesn't just have to be, for me, it doesn't just have to be sell more magazines or any one thing. There's a lot of different ways. And so I think and that's where this kind of comes in. That's why I want to talk to you about, like, I've been wanting to redo the brand, because I feel like I'm changing the way that I think about 3V and where I want it to go. So I've been doing a lot of like, I've done a really great job over the last 6 years of refining the magazine. Like, I feel really good about the print that I put out, and the writing I think is getting stronger, and the photography, like this last one, is like, I'm really, really happy with how it turned out.
Yeah.
But I don't think that everything resembles that quality, right? So I don't think like the website has still been the same for 3 or 4 years, which is fine, but it's also not representative of what I've been doing now. Yeah, and then the brand too. It's like, I think it's fine, but it's like, it doesn't. It needs to mature. Like, I need more from it now than I did when I was just starting. Like, it's done great, but I want all of those things to kind of coincide. And I'm also trying to approach it from the sense of like, when you look at the my website right now, it's like all about the magazine, but really because I set it up to be kind of the front for the the magazine.
Yeah.
But I'm not just like a magazine company. Like, I'm a media company. 3V is a media company.
Question. Right.
so I've really grown into kind of creating content around live life intentionally, and part of that is the magazines, part of it's the podcast and interviews that I do, and other parts the the videos. And so but everything that I do, and like when I look at the brands that I reached out to, even the brands that like I'm wanting to work with are centered around the intentional, like live life intentionally, brands that care about uh, about those details, and it's not just about profit, but there's a lot more behind it, and they're very um, driven by ulterior motives than than just trying to get clients and trying to make money. And so that's kind of the goal. And I know I've shared with you some of the other stuff that I've been working on around the brand, and I just want to like throw out like my ideas and have you
Tear them apart.
tear them apart. Yeah, or help me like clarify.
Yeah. All right.
So like first we'll talk about, and I'll share my screen. So that was like long-winded, and I feel like I'm in a therapy session with you.
Well, I mean, if you're recording this, you're in a therapy session with whoever watches this.
Yeah,
You're
so I'm
gonna
gonna
get out to the ether forever. Are you starting to screen now?
not yet.
Oh, okay.
But I wanted to actually, that's actually a really good point. And we had talked about this, and you were asked if I was going to record it, and I felt like I really wanted to record it just so people realize. Not a lot of people like pull back the covers and show the process of a redesign, and like
Right,
the thought process of the stuff like that. And so I felt like part of that is why I wanted to like show a critique and kind of like talk about those things, because it's as a other person, as a small business owner, I would love to, and we've talked about this, like I love how Jeff put out when he did the 2.0, and he put out a case study on everything that goes behind it.
Yeah.
But there's something about, I don't know, I just wanted to put out something that was really live, that's like, I don't know how the story's going to end yet. And that one, the finished product, and you're like, wow, and I can trace back. But this one is
right. Well, I think what's cool with that too is, especially people who haven't been a part of that or are unaware of that process, and they stumble across this and maybe they watch it and they're like, oh, I hadn't thought about thinking about these things in that way. It's easy to sort of appreciate. I don't even say easy. Like, there's already people who don't appreciate the subtleties of things, but then once you even gain appreciation for those subtleties, it's still a whole nother game to really get to a place where how to be a part of making those things. Not to imply I even know what I'm doing, right? Just that it's something you have to practice, and sometimes I to your point, I don't think there's enough of this. I think you can get a lot of books that say like, hey, you should probably look here or look there, but how often do you really get a chance to peel back the covers and watch it happening? That's different,
Yeah, I think so. I think there's something cool about it. It's
wow, that's a good looking site. Okay.
All right, so we're going to talk about, you've already seen this before, but I want to just talk through or maybe I should go through some of what I've been doing. I don't know. I don't even know where to start.
So rewind to like goal or purpose for a minute, right? Because you say,
let's go back.
You want to sort of just come back and refresh all this to align to what it is. So I just want to make sure I understand what that goal or purpose. And part of that is you want to ideally get to a place where this sustains you financially. And so what would be that source of revenue or income? Would it be the magazine as the primary one, or
so I think the anybody who sells products, I think it's more of a long-term game.
Okay.
So like a lot of times anybody, especially if you're doing physical products, you know, you're doing something that a lot of times you have to pay up front. Like there's a cost that you have to pay to be able to do the products. It's not necessarily always the fastest way. So that's why, and especially with like the magazines, like I make, you know, I think it's $4 or $5 per magazine.
Sure.
So like that's going to be a small growth over time. Whereas really what I see is client work. You know, essentially what I started doing is reaching out and saying like, I'm a small business and this is how like pillar driven content, the way that I approach content creation for my company. There's a lot, I think most small businesses aren't educated enough on that and don't realize, like they're really good with, I think photos are really great and they're easier to come by. When you start getting into video, it gets a little bit harder. And then it's the fact of when you're talking about content creation is video and photos and illustrations. It's like telling a story. When you talk about videos, they're like, I need to do this video. And, you know, I've seen it so many times where they just get focused on this one thing and you don't realize that like that one video, you can be a catalyst to create like 60 pieces of content over the next 3 or 4 months. And most people and most video, you know, production companies are focused on just doing that one video. Whereas my approach is more of, I need to make that one video. I get the benefit of, you know, 4 to 6 months of content out of any single project that I'm kind of doing. That's like the mentality that I have as a small business owner. If I'm paying for this video, there's so many side things of telling a story as a business owner that you can connect with people on all different levels. And most people are just thinking about the video and not all the things that kind of develop that concept. So
I mean, I guess to some extent you're talking about service design. I don't know if you're familiar with that concept, but it's like, you know, the end-to-end, like every aspect of your business or your thing, right? Like it all sort of like, do you understand as a whole how all these things work together? And even just like, you know, back in the day when I would do freelance work, I can't tell you how many times clients would come and say like, yeah, well, we want a site or whatever. And I could make them this amazing site. I mean, amazing, whatever, but I'm not trying to like be whatever. Anyway, but if their logo was like, just, you could tell it was made like in Word and it was just like, you know, someone's kid, you know, made it or something. I'm like, that everything's based on that. Like it's the first thing you're going to see. And I'm like, can I retweak your logo? And there's some of them were like, no. And I'm like, I would have trouble getting past it because it is the anchor in which everything else sort of ties to. And if you have a very like old English logo, you're not going to do a very, you know, modern, sleek looking, you know what I mean? Like they kind of, And so I remember I would often talk people into just like, or I would just do it. They'd say no. And I'd be like, all right. And I'd do a version with theirs and I'd do a version where I took a stab at, and they'd switch over once they saw it. But, and I wouldn't even charge them because I'm just like, it's not going to work. Like I need this to be, I need you to, anyway, I don't know if this is what you were talking about, by the way. I might be taking a tangent here, but.
No, you're good.
So I have a couple questions, and maybe this isn't what you were intending for this to be, but you mentioned a couple things, which is the site itself, and then there's the podcast, and then the YouTube, and then there's the magazine, and then right now we're mostly talking about the website, though, right? Today. And how it plays into everything, but we're focusing that lens on most of the website, right?
I think also like the logo stuff that I was
Okay, yeah.
we kind of been going back and forth. There's a few things on that I wanted to throw at you, because like I think where it's going is I really like what I did, but I don't know that
It's there yet.
Yeah, and I don't know that I'm going in the right direction. So yeah, that's the other thing that I wanted to talk about, was that logo as well.
Well, my first question is like, I don't know if you've done this, but like, who are the audiences that would come to your site? So one of the first things I'm thinking is, you know, what are the different groups or personas of people that would be coming, and then sort of prioritizing them, just so that later as I think through it, I'm saying, hey, I know that these 5 groups of people are coming. I may have someone from a podcast, someone, and they're all going to have different things that they're expecting or wanting, but I can't cater to I can't have 5 different main call to actions. And some of them may be applicable to everyone. Some of them, you know, some things there may be for certain subsets, but I always find it helpful to prioritize those in my mind, to say, if I absolutely have to pick 1, 2, or 3, then I want to have that from the onset, so that if at any point I'm thinking through this, I know that I'm at least hitting my number 1. Like, I think, you know, one of the old examples I would use was like the target, right? And so you'd have the target, and the next, then, you know, it's like the different things. And so I would say, like, so ideally when you make something, you make a decision, you want to make sure that it hits that main person. And then by doing that, like, it counts for everyone. But if you hit up here, that means that you'll get that group, but you're going to miss your one. So you want to hit for as many that hits your primary as possible in every use case, and then look to see that it hits the second and thirds, right? Like, anyway, maybe we don't need to start there right now for this, but just throwing that out there. I don't know if you've
that'd be a good, yeah, it'd be a good conversation, because I think, I don't know, maybe I feel like I might have a different approach than most people. It might be untraditional or maybe stupid, but the way I approach it is like, I essentially think I'm creating the things that I wish I would have known. You know, I keep saying, like, it's the things I wish I would have known when I was 18. But it's really like, when I think about the content that I do, it's definitely, it's not just business oriented. It really is about my story of, you know, going throughout my teens and early 20s of, you know, feeling like I was doing, you know, the right thing, like choosing the right path, and then getting to a point where it's like I had a great life, but it wasn't actually what I wanted. I didn't let myself come out. It was, and so, like, I think everyone gets to a point, you know, whether it's midlife crisis, quarter crisis, like at some point where you go, like, how do I live life on my terms? And that's really like, live life intentionally. Like, that's the core concept. It's mostly, I think, can be at any age, but I mostly think about, you know, younger, and wanting, like, people that are in their, you know, late teens and early 20s, wanting to create a life of impact. And how do you kind of make your dreams a reality? So that's like, when I think about the people that I'm talking to, it's a lot about that.
But so when someone arrives at your site, if they were to only take one action, what action would you want them to take?
That's a good question.
And that's why I'm like, it may be different based on the different audiences. You may say, like, oh, well, you know, if this is a business coming that wants me to do media for them and help tell their story, I want them going this path. And if this person, we need them there, right? And so there's a couple levels of priority based on user. It's like, one, identifying the main user groups and what it is that they either need or that you would like them to do. And there may be similarities in them, and understanding what those are just in general. And then also it's, how do they stack up against each other? So like forcing yourself to say, let me prioritize them, because, you know, you only have a few seconds to get someone to take action. And so if I only get one shot, Not to say that you wouldn't, people wouldn't scroll, they wouldn't read, but if I only had one, then I want to know I get this group, and I know that the thing that they want most is this, so I need to get them to that path as fast as possible. And so I always find that to be a helpful starting point, so that, especially with something as complex as this, so that as I'm thinking through it, I have that to look back on, or just think back on. It's always nice if you can like print out on the wall, so you can like look at it and like, oh, that reminder, I need to make sure I'm hitting this. But that's always like a help. You don't have to do it right now, but I'm just sort of throwing stuff out there. Is like, I find that to be a helpful exercise, just as a primer, even if you just sort of do it and throw it away, because it stays in your mind. It helps you kind of focus and say like, all right, now I know what the objectives are in kind of a high level order of what I want this to do, or what I want someone to do.
Well, I think when you say it that way, like, this is kind of how I've approached it the last probably 2 years. And I think maybe it's true going forward. I think this is a really good question, because it makes me really, and this is exactly why I wanted to talk to you. It's like, I know that I'm in it, and I'm confusing myself, if that makes sense. It's like, I'm thinking about it so much that I need this. I need someone to question me like this. So I think the way that I approach everything, and I think this last magazine is like a great example. So like with this, issue, or volume 34, it all started, a year ago. I started interviewing people with the idea that it would be in the magazine. Like everything, the magazine is like, it's the pillar that drives everything else. So when I say pillar driven content, it comes out of, because that's what I do. Everything kind of operates out of creating these annual magazines, and then each part kind of supports that. So like the vlogs, a lot of times the articles come out of that, and it's like topics that I talk on. I'll tweet, and then those will be part of it. So everything, the magazine is like the end compilation of the whole work, and then I have pieces that can live on their own, but they all kind of go back to the publishing the magazine. It's what started everything, and I feel like it's one of those things that I'm always going to be doing. And I really do want people to buy them, because I think, like, I go back and read them. Like I was reading volume 30, and I'm like, man, it's true. I still believe all this stuff. It's like, and they each have like different stages. So like volume 30 was like great, because it was anybody who's like, that was me in the moment when I was starting something, when I was inspired and going off of the inspiration. Volume 31 was like, holy cow, this is really hard. And it's like, you've been in it for a while, and you're realizing it. And so like each stage, each volume kind of hits someone in a different moment in their journey that they can relate. But yeah, I would say, like, if I want people to do something, it's like, I do want to sell more magazines, because I think that they're good. Like I do like the product.
And how much do you know about who has purchased historically and why they purchased? Like, are you giving them what they want?
It's all been friends and family. So like, this volume 34 is the first time that I had someone that I don't know come to the site and order a magazine. Like that was like my big, exciting moment.
and
I don't know this.
You don't know what caused it, right?
No, but I think part of it was, this last time I started, this last year, it was always about 30 to 33 was always about, the magazine was just about my life. And then 34, so 2019, after I published 33, that's when I started to do the shift. And I said, it's not just about my journey living life intentionally. It's about, creative entrepreneurs and artists, and how they created the life they want through intentional living. Right. And when I made that shift, I doubled the number of magazines that I sold. And like, that's when I started getting a lot more engagement. Just being able to, like, I thought about stuff differently. And so like, I'm looking to different creatives and talking to them about their path to be able to create the life that they wanted. And that to me is like truer to the audience that I'm trying to speak to. It's people that are trying to figure out how do you turn that corner, because that essentially it's like that's what I'm trying to do right now. It's, you know, I'm creating something that I am benefiting from at the same time.
Right.
If that makes sense.
So, I mean, I know, like, for me, it's like when I hear you say like, oh, it's mostly friends and family, like that could be dismissed as like, well, you know, they just did it to be nice. But like, for me, it was after hearing you talk about it, you know, the magazines, and like, I just genuinely was like, oh, this is actually interesting. Like, it wasn't like, and I don't know if this like enters your mind at all, but like, you know, when if I heard someone say that like, oh, I sold them, but it was just that, then I'm like, my first like negative reaction is like, oh, well, you know, they just bought it because they, you know, wanted to be nice. But like, that's not why I bought it, right? Like, I didn't have any, you weren't pushing to sell it. You were just talking about it passionately. And I was like, oh, that sounds actually interesting. And I went and ordered. I don't even think I told you about it the first time. I just was like, put the order in. And so, yeah, I guess ultimately it's like, at some point, probably want to figure out a way to do that, like market research, to figure out what's causing, so you can double down on, like, how do you get more of that? Like, there's something there probably.
Well, I think that's why when I was talking to my friend, it's like, that is what's happening. Like, I've recognized that, like, when I talk to people, they do think it is interesting. Like, it is,
right.
The people that have bought it, it's been because I've explained it, not just because they're like, oh, you did something, I'll go buy it from you.
Right.
It's the way that I approach and discuss it. And so that's why I was like, well, part of it is like, nobody knows me. Like, I don't have any followers. Like, they don't, I think there's people out there that would buy it. They just don't know about me. They haven't heard me yet. Right. Like, that's part of the problem is
totally.
And that's why I would want to get, I think there's not enough data to be able to determine. It's just simply like the biggest data point is that I have no data points, because it's the people that I have talked to.
That's an opportunity to say, like, moving forward, how can I start? Yeah, what can I start getting, like, gleaning, or I don't know, there's somewhere in the flow of the ordering where you can just be how did you hear about us, or what do you think, or something, just to get some data. You know what I mean? Like, why are you ordering this? Like,
yeah.
I don't know how many people would actually fill it out, but that would be a start to at least have something. But do you want to dive into the site, or just go to the logo or something? Or I feel like this is a good combo. I just didn't know if we're heading in the direction you wanted to. Like,
we can. I don't know. I could. So maybe I'll run you through. So what I've done as well is like, maybe I'll go quickly over, because I think this is really important. One of the things that I did was step back and go, what are the brands that I really love, and why do I love them, and like, why do I want that? Like, what are the pieces that I want to fold into my company, right? And so maybe we could just like go through. I'll show you their sites and just kind of talk through their brands, stuff like that.
And also say, like, what makes them different from their competitors? Because there's probably a lot of people doing similar things, and sometimes it's just luck, but I think the devil's in the details.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's a pattern there that you might find, that they're doing something very minor that makes them different from others that are in the same space.
I should have done this before. I should have gotten all the.
It's all right. The anticipation is moving. While you're doing that, actually, I'm gonna switch over and turn my fan up. So tonight is Wayne night.
Yeah, we're chatting with Wayne. You had mentioned it last time, and
did you talk to him? What did he say?
He was all for it. He's like, "What's the topic?" I was like, "I don't know. We'll figure it out."
yeah. Wait, like, did you just like email him or text or what? How are y'all?
I just texted him.
Oh, and you just said, "Hey, we're gonna get on a call. Be ready," or what? Like, what did you even say?
I just asked him. What do you mean? What did I say? I just said, hey, I'm doing a. I sent him a fax. Okay, no, I messaged him and I just said, hey, I asked him how he's doing and all that, and then I said, hey, I'm started a new series called Evolution of One, and it's just me talking with people about different topics and me like challenging my assumptions and to have better beliefs. And I'd love to have you and Oscar. We were talking together and just wanted to have a conversation together. And he's like, yeah, that sounds great. Then we got the time, and then he's like, what are we talking on? And I just said, well, I don't know, we'll figure it out.
Cool.
It's probably going to be something around, because Wayne is actually a really creative person.
Totally.
From a technical side, and so that's kind of the route I'm going to talk. Is not a lot of people talk about creativity outside. It's always pegged in with design, and I just don't believe that that's where it needs to fit. And
I would say
so
it's
that's
pegged
where
in with visuals more than
yeah,
right. Because there's like technical design or totally. And I mean, even Wayne's smart enough that I feel like, I mean, it's been a long time, but he could do something pretty good as far as even the front end if you wanted to, like he's sharp enough to know, like, I should be somewhere around here. I don't think it was something that he was like necessarily passionate about or was like saying that he was like the greatest at, but he's smart enough to know like, oh, this is probably bad. I should be in this range, which I always appreciated.
yeah. And he was really good at being able to say like, he'd take a stab at it, but then he'd be like, I need to hire someone to come in, and
right.
like he definitely recognized.
Yep.
He had a skill set that he was very, very good at, and his ability to go, I'm going to hire that out because I want to get the same quality that I'm able to get in my thing.
Totally.
And that's, I think there's a lot to be said about that.
Yep.
Okay.
Just recognizing.
So yeah, I'm excited about that.
I genuinely haven't spoken to him since he left, so I'm just excited just to say hello.
Here, we'll start. We're going to start at Ugmonk because he's one of the first that comes to mind.
Yeah.
I feel like we've talked a lot about him, so I don't know that we need to go in that much detail, but just, for the audience to be able to see. So, like one of the things we've talked about is like his, so actually like I wanted to show, like I spent a lot of time like going through like, this isn't just like one day going out, but it's like coming back and like asking questions to myself and going like, why are these the brands that stick out to me?
Right.
Trying to understand myself kind of thing through this process. So I know, help me understand and refine like what I'm looking for. So there's like his design style is like, I love his photography. It's like a really clean, site. The way that he uses color, I think is like, it's subtle, but impactful. Like when, his logo, he did the whole redesign, and I think we talked about it in our first kind of conversation, a lot about like the products that he does and stuff. And also like I've watched him over the years as well, right? So I've been following him for probably eight years, and I've seen him mature his brand and refine it and refine himself through the process, right? And then, and I think another thing about the Ugmonk brand that I really love is he shares so much of the process. So like in all the things that he does, it's just like he approaches everything from a very unique vantage point, and then he shares that vantage point of like, I'm not saying everyone has to do it this way. This is just my way of thinking, and I really appreciate how personal he is with his community. Like it always feels like he's like the celebrity person that I have tweeted and he'll tweet back, and how accessible he is, I think is like one of those things that I would like to pull into my brand. Like as I grow, I feel like he does a really great job at not forgetting that. And he has the journal where he really shows like behind the scenes. And as a small business owner myself, like I really appreciate to see how he did, launch these products and like what are the sketches that he went through. So, and then like I don't know, he just does some really like cool things, like return, like his, it all comes down to like his taste is so on point that anything that he does comes comes from such a good center, and the decision making is because he has that foundational taste.
Yeah.
It makes it easier to follow, I think. So that's,
I want to say that, I feel like the brand, like his personal brand and where that meshes with Ugg Monk or whatever, like didn't really start until I can't even put a finger on it, but I remember it felt very like intentional, to where I don't think he was that like engaging his audience as much in the past, and he wasn't. I think at some point he started getting feedback. We were asking enough questions about how do you get started? I think some of this came from like him reading up about engagement and sort of learning about it on his own, and then hearing these things and saying like, oh, I am good at, like, I have good taste in general. I could share things that I like, and people would actually want to see that. Or people are asking me enough questions that I'm wondering how much of this was just him like listening to his customers, right? And saying like, oh, like I can help with that, or I can answer your question and sort of do the brand thing at the same time. I guess it goes back to what you're saying, right? But I remember there being a point in which I could feel that shift happening a few years back, and it was like, oh, he's putting effort here in a way that is much more noticeable than it was before. And now it feels very polished. Like to your point, I think he does a really good job of that stuff. But I feel like there's like a flip that like I don't know if it was like he read something or if it was just a slow evolution. I can't pinpoint it, but we should chat with him sometime. I should ping him and see if he'll waste some time just hanging out.
that would be awesome. I mean, we talk about him enough, or I do at least.
Yeah.
But like I guess that's the thing too, is it's not just about like the brand, but it's how he runs the brand that I'm like, that's
right.
He talks about his products and it's like part of him, but it's not in a not sleazy, but not in like a con man kind of way of like, come buy my products, but it's like, here's my thought process, here's how I do it. It never feels forceful. It feels like having a conversation. It's definitely like relation-based, branding. And I think that's definitely where my mind lies, is being able to make real connections, not like a lot of people, like, especially like recently, I've had a lot of people be DMing me, and just the way that they start, it feels like they want something from me. And I'm just like, hey, how you been? I'm like, I don't really know. Like, why are you, I'll be nice and be like, hey, maybe there's alternative modes. And they're like, hey, I'm doing this course. It seems like something you should come and buy. I'm like, I don't know. I don't really like that. Like, buy my stuff. I never get that feeling with Jeff. He's just very much like sharing to his community. And those are the things that like I want to pull in, is like that feeling of, here's how I run a business. Cause like I genuinely am interested in that, cause I'm trying to do my thing. And so the ways that he shares it, I think is very appealing to me.
I think also what I really appreciate is like, I'm sure there were many opportunities that he could have, put out more designs or pushed out more whatever, or done partnerships. Like he very intentionally kept it, like, I'll go back to his own mantra of slow and steady, right? Like, I think he's like, I'm going to produce what I believe is the right thing, the right quality level. Maybe it's going to cost a little more or whatever, but this is what I think is the right thing to do. and this is the right pace, and I'm gonna do it that way. So yeah,
Yeah.
I always like that as well.
Yeah,
It's
he
like
just
hard. It's not easy.
he tweeted the other day, and I think it was in one of the interviews that he's done. He's done a bunch recently, but one of the ones that I watched, he was talking about that exact thing about know why you're getting into it, and know like what are the things that you like, so that as you grow, like those are the things you're keeping. And like for him, he didn't want to get away from design, and like you were saying, he talks about slow growth. Like a lot of what we hear in like rework too, I think is like that same kind of idea. Is like you don't have to, like, you're running the business, so like if you don't have to create $1 billion business. Like that's just do the things that you love. Like and if you wanted to grow, then grow, and if you don't, then don't, and don't
Yeah,
feel like you
right.
always have to be doing something else.
Right.
I appreciate that.
All right, let's move on because I feel like we talk about him a lot.
I know, but he genuinely is one of the main brands that I do really like. Well, I'll go to another one. I don't know if you've heard of this brand. They're a magazine brand. It's Les Others.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just show you their magazine. So I bought this one, and holy cow, like I freaking love this publication so much.
Why
And
only one?
they
Why
just
didn't you buy them all? Are they expensive?
no, they're not that expensive, but I already have a bunch. I've actually, when I was going back through this, I actually did want to buy another one because they did the rebranding, and I was like, oh man, it looks so good, because this is the one I had, which is still good.
Yeah.
The brand is like really great, but their new logo, I just felt like that's kind of like where I wanted to go with mine, is like
So
it's
that's
not
the
like
old
a
one on the
huge
bottom,
difference.
and the new
Yeah,
one's on top. Okay, cool. Yeah,
yeah, and then they just did a refresh,
the gray
and
change.
it just looks really
Yep.
nice. Like it's really good.
Yep.
So the interesting thing about this too is that it's a group of French kind of explorers or adventurers,
Mhm.
and I follow them on Instagram as well, because they do, and this is what I like about them as well, is that it's like they sell the magazines, but then they also do like adventure retreats. So they'll get like small groups of people, because their whole thing is
Sorry.
about
Hold on.
outdoors.
Sorry, hold on. I just spilled a bunch of water. I need to get something to clean it up. Sorry.
Okay.
Hold
Oh, I can see the water.
on. Just dropping things all over the place now.
Hang on, I was gonna watch you clean it up. Wait.
Hold on. I'm surprised my glass didn't break, to be honest. I probably should start up here on the desk.
Actually, I'm gonna go get water.
Usually we put up the audience slide for like intermission, play some music.
I should probably go faster through these, so I'm not keeping you for so long.
I don't have anything until, actually I was about to check. I think that's probably what made me drop this, is I was about to multitask for me. I was trying not to look away. Okay, well, I'll clean that up later. At least I got the water soaked up. Coaster. Oh.
I've talked about this before, but I feel like this is like, I'm actually like the people that inspire you, and the products and stuff that inspire you, like they make their way into your work, like things that you really like.
Oh yeah.
As an artist, like once you find that out, it's actually really interesting when you see someone doing something that's like, what are the things that like motivated you, artists or products, and then you can usually find those pieces in And that's kind of where I started going. It's like, why do I love these things? Because that's what I want to attract, right?
This typeface in my brain is somewhere around where I see 3V's typeface. Not like your current one, but like in my brain, that's where I would want to explore something like this direction. I don't know if that's what you were thinking, but there's something
that's
about
one of the
this like fat, like, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's this in between.
Yep.
Like it's like a small serif, right? Whereas before they had the longer tails, but so it feels like this in between, more modern approach to the serif. Is the reason I like it is that it's, you know, a very classic.
Yeah.
And my whole thing is like timeless design, and so like, and especially when you're doing publications, like there's a lot about having like a, you know, a serif font that you read on for the eyes. It's really good, and keeping that classic look. But the way that they did it was just such a modern twist on a classic form that I really loved. So one of the other things that
I think it's like a 70s almost vibe, except that it's on like a very minimal modern aesthetic. Something about that font. Anyway, sorry, go ahead. What else were you gonna say?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, some of the other things that I really liked about them. For one, it's like it's bilingual, and I've done a few other videos on my YouTube that are in French because I speak French. I just think that I lived in France for several years. I loved the culture, like really connected with a lot of the mindset. And so there's something about that, you know, the French culture and the fact that they do bilingual that I really love. So that's another reason that I came across. It's the other bilingual people like myself. Another thing that they do is like they have really large images, and that's one of the, like, large photography is one of the things in my original branding thing. It was like I wanted the pictures to be front and center. That's why if you look at my thing, I have like 3 different sizes of pictures, and they're all large. Like,
Yeah.
I don't have any like tiny little things. It just, so I like that about this one.
And I noticed on your current typeface, like the font, the current font choice is so thin and like modern that I suspect that's the reason why you have it sitting on that white box, partly because it wouldn't, it's not thick enough to hold its own on a background. You need something fatter if you want to be able to place it on top without a container. That's my guess. I don't know if that's why you have your logo on the magazines, like, as opposed to being in the photo, right? Like, if you look at the other site, they're putting their logo actually on the photo.
Oh yeah.
On their magazine covers, but that's hard if you have a very skinny font, which is also probably why they bumped their thickness up, I would guess. It's just a lot more readable if you're going to do that. It gives you a lot more flexibility.
Huh. Yeah, I didn't even catch that. Actually,
I'm assuming.
No, one of the reasons for this original design is I don't have it on here, but if you look at the original Kinfolk, it was, yeah. So the original Kinfolk, they were all like this, and I was
What's
hugely influenced.
Modern Kinfolk one look like?
So the new one is, here's the newer ones.
Sorry, sending a text. Nice. I like how they actually break I'm big on breaking the barriers, so.
Yeah, I know. I actually really love it too.
I like breaking containers, so that's cool. All right, what else you got? Or did we finish with the other one? Sorry, we kind of got distracted. I'm all squirrel.
We did.
I like that.
So another one is woven.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked about this. That's where the article titles, where I got the type for this. So I love their logo. It's really cool. It's really beautifully done. Again, they have like large photography, and for
Yeah.
some reason, one of the things that I really love is this muted palette that they do.
Yep.
So like it's really like this green, I think is like the only real color. And then you have these kind of like beige or like gray, light grays. And then the only break in that is like you really it draws your eye into the things that you want, the things they want you to kind of like take notice of.
Yeah.
And they do different things too, not just magazines, and so that's one of the things I like. So they do, you know, films and
Oh, nice.
they have the blog, and so they have like online stuff, but then they also do some films. And so I feel like they are a little bit closer to the type of
Yeah.
approach that I'm going, and just their font choice is like really, I think,
Is
really
that
great.
this might be a question for later, and I'll look it up now. But is that font like I see is that the same font they're using for the titles? Like, is it a web font, or did they just find something that's similar? I can't tell for certain.
I don't
I
know.
don't think it's
Hang
the
on.
same actually. It's not.
No, it's not. It's not the
It's
same.
not because they have breaks in theirs. Never mind. Okay. Yeah. But still, they kind of matched it. They paired it with something that, like a serif that. Anyway, that's good.
All right, so this is that one I sent you. It's kind of a funny addition, but like,
Yeah.
here's the thing. I actually really like a lot of the stuff that they do.
I think I'm trying to like. I'm not any expert on this, but I feel like it's like this weird minimal. Are you familiar with like the avant-garde, like Herb Lublin?
No, but I need to go look these things up.
Just do a search for Herb, 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 and then Lubalin, Lubalin, I think. And I think I want to say he was like the father of this style called avant-garde. Actually, just type avant-garde graphic design and go to images. I could be wrong once again, but head over to images and look at the type. I guess it's more like avant-garde typography. The issue is that there is a typeface called avant-garde, but nonetheless, if you scroll down some, especially if you look at the typography in the lower ones, there's something about, I'm trying to think of like, oh, I guess I can't highlight stuff. But keep going. Maybe I'm crazy. Keep going. I think you probably need typography is what we need. Anyway, I could be wrong, but there's like a 70s style that like you're channeling here, I think. It's just giving you the font, but the font is based off a larger movement of these like bright colors, minimalist, like it sort of defined a certain style. And maybe there's a different one. It wasn't this one, but anyway, sorry, you can move on. But yeah, better booch. And you just stumbled across this in a gas station?
No, it's in Central Market.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I was getting. So I'm a huge fan of Holy Kombucha. That's the brand that I am. I drink all the time. I have, you know, but I drink kombucha like most people drink wine. So
I don't even know what that is.
Kombucha?
Yeah.
It's a fermented tea. So it's just a drink that has a lot of probiotics and kind of healthy minerals in it.
Nice.
So it tastes like a soda, but it's actually healthy.
Yeah.
So it's actually really good. But I came across this brand at Central Market, and I liked the design of it itself, and I was like, oh, I'll give it a try. Like if something's designed really well, like I showed you the ice cream too. I was like, man, I want to be I want to be wowed by an ice cream. I'm like, all these designs on the containers are so like forgetful. Like, give me
Yeah,
something
yeah.
that's like really good,
Right.
and then have a great ice cream. Like, that's what I was looking for. Anyways, but got this kombucha, and I was like, I'll give it a shot. It's pretty good.
You
And
know,
I'm a kombucha snob, so
so first off, before we start talking about this one, are there more after this, or is this the main ones that you had?
these
Because
are
I
the main
have,
ones.
okay, because I'm seeing one of many patterns, but one that has like every single one of these has, besides just a minimalist design aesthetic, because I thought we were mostly going to talk about aesthetics, but now I'm seeing every one of the ones you highlighted. Not only do you like the aesthetics, but they all have the, you know, be intentional mantras behind them, it seems. No, like this one does. So does like Ugmonk. Like, so does am I crazy or no? Do they? I guess maybe not all of them, but
Yeah, you're right. Because this one's it's about yeah, it celebrates artists, designers, and entrepreneurs
yep,
while exploring history of
right,
design. Yeah, so it's like,
yep. I don't know if the travel people one that we had before this does, but
so
anyway,
there, yeah.
all that to say, like, is your scope too small? It might not be. Like, I think every example you have is great, but if we're talking about finding your aesthetic style, are you mixing, like, although they do intertwine, it's like often I would tell people, like, yeah, like before we start, go out, and I'd give them links to some repositories. I just go, like, just go and find things that you like. Like, doesn't matter if it has anything to do with your industry. Doesn't matter if it like go find sites that you like, and then tell me what it is you like about it. And I don't care if it's like, oh, they put a period at the end of their titles, or, oh, I don't care if it's like there's this one picture in the corner, or I like the way that they, it doesn't mean that we're going to do any of those things, but I'm just curious what you like. Just curate things you like, and just look at the pictures. Don't worry about the content. And so I could get a sense for like what style they're really drawing from. And I only say that because as I'm seeing this pattern of, like, I see the style, but I also see this theme. I'm just kind of questioning whether you've looked broad enough at other examples yet, like that are, some random company that makes, I don't know, chip clips. I have no idea. Like, totally unrelated to anything you want to do, but their visual aesthetic is like jives with you totally, not an issue. I just was curious, like, if you've noticed the pattern of the ones that you picked out have the mindset as well as or maybe they're just.
I mean, it makes sense because like all of these are, I think, are ones that I've picked up along the way, right?
Yeah.
So and I think that's a really good point of, going back and broadening, because these are all ones that I've been following. And this original, if you look at the list that I was going, is why, if you remember when I started this, it was, why do I like these ones? These are a group of ones that I follow. What is it that I like? I like your approach of just going, I wasn't going out and just saying, what do I like? I was saying, I already follow these ones. Why?
What is it about? Right. No, that's
right.
Good too. Totally.
But I like, yeah, that's a really good approach, because it's all very like-minded. Like it's very close to what I'm already in, and I haven't taken those approaches
which is great. But when I think about you're entering the space, and I'm thinking of like market differentiators, right? And while you still may end up in a similar design aesthetic, finding other companies that are doing something similar visually may spark something that really helps you stay within the thing that you like, but also like break out a little bit, like, oh, I can do this because you've been kind of here for a little bit. It's kind of hard because there's like so many sites it's sort of like, where are you gonna go? But sometimes even just like scrolling through Dribble is helpful.
That's what I was gonna say. I do that a lot. just to get ideas, like initial thinking. Yeah.
Yeah. I think we talked about this. We didn't record it, I don't think, but it was like the evolution of being a designer. And like, I think at first you either, someone tells you follow like a pre-made template, or then you kind of move to maybe, I lost your video, by the way.
Oh.
Or you move to like copying, right? So you find a site you like and you're like, I'm just going to copy this thing. I don't know if you follow that. That's the way I used to do it. And then it was, well, now I'm going to merge these two things or three things I like into one design that's a little bit different. And then eventually you get to a place where it's like, I don't really even look at them anymore. I can just spit those out. Like I know what I like or dislike, and I don't need to even reference at some point. I mean, I guess even still, I still go and like do a brush for inspiration. But in the old days, I would like pull up 2 or 3 and say like, okay, I'm stealing this from here. Like I'm gonna do titles this way. I'm gonna do this one this way. And now I think it's more just mental. Like I'll maybe before I start something, I'll skim and just get some ideas, but I don't like bookmark them. I just kind of, they're there and then I move on. Oh shoot, what time is it? 12:30. I gotta go to another thing. Shoot, I forgot. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good.
We should talk about this more. I think we're getting some good stuff here.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.